My wife rolled her eyes when I spoke at family dinners, called me boring in front of her parents, said I had no personality. 3 years later, her parents called me asking for financial help. She was standing right next to them. My name is Garrett, and I was 34 when this started. My wife, Dina, was 32. We had been married for 6 years and together for 9. We lived in Tucson, Arizona, in a 2-bedroom house on a quiet street with gravel landscaping and a covered porch. I worked as a geotechnical engineer for a regional firm called Bridwell Soil Solutions. My base salary was $91,000 a year. Dina worked as an office coordinator for a dental group and made $43,000. Together we were comfortable, not wealthy, but stable. We had a social life that mostly revolved around her family. Sunday dinners at her parents' house in the foothills, occasional cookouts with her sister and brother-in-law, and monthly outings with a group of couples she had known since college. I was always present. I was rarely loud. I listened more than I talked, and when I did talk, I tried to say something worth saying. That apparently was the problem. Her father, Milt, liked to dominate conversations. Her mother, Patrice, liked to laugh at whatever Milt said. Her sister Bree and her husband Colton talked about youth sports and home renovation constantly. I had nothing to add to those conversations. So I listened, asked questions, and contributed when I had something real to offer. Dina started rolling her eyes in year 4 of our marriage. A small thing at first. I would make a comment about soil erosion patterns near the Rincon Mountains, and she would look at the ceiling. I would mention a project timeline, and she would pick up her phone. By year 5, it was regular. By year 6, it was a performance. One Sunday dinner, I mentioned that my firm had been contracted to assess land stability for a solar development near Casa Grande. Milt asked a follow-up question. Before I could answer, Dina said, "Don't get him started. He'll talk about dirt for an hour." Everyone laughed. I finished my water and said nothing. 3 weeks later at Bree's birthday dinner, someone asked what I did for work. Before I could answer, Dina said, "He moves dirt around and calls it engineering." More laughter. I passed the bread basket and kept eating. The comment that stuck came on a Thursday in November. We were at her parents' house for an early Thanksgiving. Her cousin Marco was visiting from Phoenix and asked Dina how married life was treating her. She said, "It's fine. He just has no personality. He's brilliant at being forgettable." She said it like I was not in the room. I was sitting 4 feet away. Marco looked at me, then back at her, and changed the subject. I drove home that night thinking about the word forgettable. Update 1. 2 months before that Thanksgiving, my project manager had forwarded me a job listing. A firm in Boise, Idaho called Crestmore Geotechnical was building out a new division focused on large-scale infrastructure assessment for state highway departments. They were looking for a senior engineer with exactly my background. The salary range was $138,000 to $152,000, plus a relocation package, full benefits, and a performance bonus structure that could add another $18,000 to $22,000 annually. I had not told Dina yet. I was still deciding if I wanted to apply. After that Thanksgiving, I decided. I applied quietly in early December. I did my phone screen from my car during lunch. I did my first video interview from a conference room at work with the door locked. I did not mention any of it at home. Dina was busy with holiday plans and end-of-year work deadlines. She did not notice anything different about me. I opened a personal checking account at a credit union across town. I moved 3 months of my personal expenses into it slowly. I started reading about Boise neighborhoods, cost of living, housing inventory. I found a 2-bedroom apartment near the Boise River Greenbelt that was available in February. I saved the listing. In January, I flew to Boise for an in-person interview. I told Dina I had a site assessment in Flagstaff and would be back the next day. She said, "Try not to bore them." I nodded and drove to the airport. Crestmore offered me the position 4 days later. $146,000 base, $20,000 relocation, full benefits, and a first-year bonus target of $19,000. I accepted. Update 2. I told Dina on a Saturday morning in late January. We were in the kitchen. She was making coffee. I sat down at the table and told her I had taken a new job in Boise and that I was relocating in 3 weeks. She put down the coffee pot. "You accepted a job in another state without telling me." "I told you now," I said. "That is not how this works," she said. I explained the salary, the role, the opportunity. She said it did not matter. She said I was making a unilateral decision about our marriage. I told her I had made a unilateral decision about my career. Those were 2 different things. I told her she was welcome to come. I told her I had looked at dental coordinator positions in Boise, and there were several open roles. She said she was not moving to Idaho. I said I understood. She said if I left, I was choosing a job over her. I said I was choosing myself. That was different. She gave me the ultimatum clearly. If I got on that plane, she would not be waiting when I came back. I told her I was not planning to come back. Update 3. The 3 weeks between that conversation and my move were quiet in a way that felt permanent. Dina went through the predictable stages. The first week she was cold and formal. The second week she wanted to talk every night. Long circular conversations where she asked me why I was doing this. I answered honestly each time. The third week she stopped talking to me almost entirely. Her mother called me once. Patrice said I was being selfish. I told her respectfully that I disagreed and ended the call. Bree texted me that I was destroying the family. I replied that I was relocating for a career opportunity and wished her well. Moving day was a Wednesday. Dina was at work. I had hired a small moving company to pack and ship the items we had agreed were mine. The house was hers. We had agreed on that too, and I had signed the paperwork. I took my truck, a 2-year-old Tacoma, and drove it to the shipping terminal. I flew to Boise that evening. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building called the Oahe Flats, overlooking the Greenbelt and the river. It was quiet and clean. I unpacked 2 bags that night, set up my coffee maker, and sat by the window watching the tree line along the water. I had a start date in 4 days. I had a grocery list on my phone. I had no one checking on me, and I did not miss that as much as I expected. Update 4. Crestmore was everything the job description had promised. My direct manager was a woman named Elspeth who had 20 years of infrastructure assessment experience and ran her team without unnecessary meetings. My first project was a slope stability analysis for a stretch of US 20 near Mountain Home. I had a field crew, a decent truck allowance, and the kind of autonomy I had not had in Tucson. By month 3, I had settled into a routine that felt sustainable. I was running along the Greenbelt in the mornings. I had found a coffee shop called Thornwood on Myrtle Street that I liked. I had met a few people through a Geology Society chapter and had dinner with colleagues occasionally. My performance review at 6 months was strong. Elspeth told me the highway department had specifically requested me by name on a follow-up project. My bonus came in at $22,000, slightly above the target range. Around that same time, a few people from Dina's social circle started reaching out. Her college friend Waverly sent me a message asking how I was doing. Her cousin Marco texted asking if I was enjoying Boise. I replied briefly to both. I was polite and said nothing about the marriage or Dina. I thought about the Sunday dinners sometimes. Not with longing. More like studying something from a distance and finally being able to see its actual shape. Dina had called me forgettable in front of her family. I remembered sitting 4 feet away while she said it. I had spent years at those dinners being still and careful and present, and it had registered as nothing. Update 5. At the end of my first year at Crestmore, I updated my professional profile with my new title, Senior Project Engineer, my firm, and a brief description of the highway infrastructure work my team had completed. I did not post anything personal. It was purely professional. Within 48 hours, Dina had sent me a message. She said she had not realized the scope of what I had moved into. She said it looked like I was doing well. She asked if we could talk sometime. I did not reply for 4 days. When I did, I said I was glad she saw it and that I hoped she was doing well too. Her friends were less subtle. Waverly sent a longer message admitting she had assumed I was running from something when I left. She said the job looked impressive and she felt she had misjudged the situation. I thanked her and kept it brief. Her brother-in-law Colton, who had never once asked me a real question at those family dinners, sent me a LinkedIn connection request with a note asking if my firm ever hired project managers. I accepted the connection and said I would keep him in mind. Update 6. Dina came to Boise 8 months after I had moved. She had not told me she was coming. She sent a message the morning of, saying she was in town and asking if I had time to meet. I had time. I agreed to meet at a neutral place, a small restaurant near the river called Fork and Ledge. She looked tired. She said she had been thinking about everything for a long time. She said she had grown a lot since I left, and that she understood now why I made the decision I made. I listened. She said she wanted to know if there was any possibility of trying again. I asked her about the Sunday dinner in November, the one where she said I had no personality. I asked her about Casa Grande and the breadbasket. I mentioned the birthday dinner and the comment about moving dirt. She said she remembered. She said she was embarrassed by those moments now. I told her I believed her. I also told her that what she was embarrassed by was not a bad day or a slip of the tongue. It was a pattern I had watched for 2 years before I did anything about it. I told her that I had sat 4 feet away while she said those things and had never once raised my voice. I said that took a certain kind of discipline, and I had applied that same discipline to building something new. I told her I wished her well and meant it. I told her there was nothing left to try. Update 7. About 2 months after her visit, Dina posted something on social media implying she had been financially abandoned and left without support during a difficult period in her life. She did not name me, but the framing was clear enough for people who knew us. My attorney, a Boise-based family lawyer named Voss, who I had retained early in the process, sent her a brief letter. It outlined the property agreement she had signed, the equitable division of our joint accounts, and the fact that she had retained the house and its equity. The letter asked that she correct any public statements that misrepresented those facts. She deleted the post within a week. Several people who knew both of us had already responded to it before it came down. Marco had commented asking her to clarify what support she meant specifically. Waverly had sent her a private message, the contents of which Waverly later shared with me, asking her to be accurate about what had actually happened. The post disappeared without a formal correction. Update 8. A year and 8 months after I moved to Boise, I was promoted to principal engineer. My new base was $171,000. The firm added a project leadership stipend of $8,000 annually. I had moved from the Oahe Flats into a house I purchased near the North End neighborhood, a 1970s Craftsman with a covered porch and mature trees on a corner lot. I was seeing someone. Her name was Simone. She was 31, and she worked as a hydrologist for a state water resource agency. We had met through the Geology Society. She was direct and calm and had no interest in Sunday dinners where someone else ran the room. Dina sent me a message on the anniversary of my move. She said she thought about our years together often. She said she hoped I had found what I was looking for. She said she was sorry for the things she said at those family dinners, the comments that were meant to be funny but were not. I replied the next morning. I said I appreciated her saying that. I said I had found what I was looking for. I said I hoped she had too. Final update. 3 months after that message, Milt called me. I did not recognize the number at first. When he said his name, I sat back in my chair and waited. He said things had been difficult for them financially. He said a commercial property he had invested in had not performed the way he expected. He said Dina was with him, listening. He said he knew this was an unusual call to make and that he understood if I had no interest in helping. I thought about those Sunday dinners. The eye rolls. The breadbasket. The word forgettable hanging in the air while I sat 4 feet away and said nothing. Milt asking Dina follow-up questions and Dina cutting me off before I could answer. All those meals where I showed up and tried and was treated like background noise. I told Milt I was sorry to hear about his situation. I told him I was not in a position to help financially and that I thought it would be inappropriate given the circumstances of the last 2 years. I told him I said it without any satisfaction and that I genuinely meant that. He said he understood. I asked him to tell Dina I said hello. I put the phone down and looked out the window at the trees on my corner lot. Simone was in the kitchen making coffee. There was a site report on my desk for a highway project outside Nampa that I needed to finish by noon. I had been called boring. I had been called forgettable. I had been told I had no personality by someone who thought that was a safe thing to say 4 feet in front of me. What I actually had was patience and a very clear sense of where I was going. I picked up my pen and went back to work.